In Philadelphia, you don't just remember Benjamin Franklin. Sure, like any founding father in a historic city, you'll find artifacts and statues. But here, in this city, you drive across his bridge, follow his parkway, and walk in his streets. His name is everywhere, and his legacy looms large. Previously on Holiday Roads.
The Franklin family plot, Benjamin not buried here, he being in Philadelphia, but this is the rest of his family, and it is so large because Boston wants everyone to know that Ben Franklin was born and raised here.
A printer, he didn't like the way his brother ran his business or treated him, and so at the ripe age of 17, he decides he's going to break his apprenticeship, hop onto a ship, stow away, and go to Philadelphia. He is caught by the captain and he lies. He says that he's gotten a girl pregnant and that he needs to get out of town immediately, and the captain buys it and lets him stay. So he heads to Philadelphia. In a lot of ways the rest is history, right?
But it was here in Philadelphia that Ben Franklin became Ben Franklin. Pennsylvania, named for William Penn and his Quaker vision, had a rich and oft-forgotten history long before British occupation. Nearly 90 years before Franklin arrived in 1723, Swedish settlers established the colony of New Sweden, leaving an indelible mark on the region's culture and the log cabin traditions of the American frontier. When the Quakers arrived some 40 years before Franklin's time, they didn't replace this foundation, they added to it, and what emerged was a multicultural city already bustling with diversity by the time Franklin stepped ashore. When Franklin first arrived in Philadelphia, exhausted and alone, he didn't walk into the circles of wealthy Quaker merchants or city leaders. He stepped off that boat onto a bustling waterfront where dock workers, tradesmen, and immigrants, Swedes, Dutch, Germans, were the lifeblood of the city. These were the people who kept Philadelphia running, and they were the first faces Franklin would have seen in his new home. The vestiges of New Sweden were dwindling in Franklin's Philadelphia, but one remnant still stands tall today to tell its story: Old Swedes Church. Now known today as Old Swedes Church, Gloria Dei is the oldest church in Pennsylvania and one of the last remaining links to the Swedish colony that predated William Penn. Its churchyard dates back to before Franklin even arrived, and its stones, worn by time, tell the story of lives who once lived on this very shoreline. Through adornments and gravestones alike, Gloria Dei recalls its Scandinavian heritage and its early ties to the Swedish crown. One of the many stories held within these walls is that of Gustavus Hesselius, a Swedish-American painter and early congregant. His portraits captured the faces of colonial America, making him one of the first prominent artists of the New World. Even the more familiar names of the Revolutionary era passed through these doors, including Betsy Ross, who married her second husband, Sea Captain Joseph Ashburn, here in 1777. Though its origins are colonial, Gloria Dei is still active today, a spiritual home that has welcomed generations. From early immigrants to present-day Philadelphians, the legacy of New Sweden lives on, not behind museum glass, but in this thriving community of faith. As a fully colonial building, Old Swedes Church, there is no running water inside the church. So, if you do come to visit, have to use the restroom, come to this building right over here. Pro tip, visitor tip from experience. While churches like Gloria Dei tell the story of Philadelphia's early settlers, the city's streets still hold echoes of the people who lived and worked here in Franklin's day, and no street preserves that story better than Elfreth's Alley. Here again in Old City, Philadelphia, we come across what would seem to be a historical recreation of some type, but no, this is actually the oldest or the longest continually occupied residential street in America. This is Elfreth's Alley. These are private residences of which people live in, and people have lived here since before American independence. Again, yes, people really do live here, and they have since 1713.
And there is a museum on site, and we're going to see if we can check it out. Here is a garden yard path here in Elfreth's Alley called Bladen's Court. It was actually originated between 1749 and 1752. Two properties that faced onto Front Street. The owners actually wanted outside access to the yard, so they split the cost in developing this particular walkway. Here's a courtyard in Elfreth's Alley with admission to the Elfreth's Alley Museum, which is really just a couple of dollars. Nation's oldest residential street. This was not a residential street used by the wealthy or the military, anybody of quote-unquote historical importance, except the workers. This was a working class community. Many immigrants worked here. So again, also, in their own way, they were people of importance. So as part of living on a residential street, the residents here at Elfreth's Alley, some own them and some own and rent out to others. But there are some rules and conditions. They have to keep the facade intact, but for either their own comforts or for obviously code reasons for safety, fire, electricity. Work does get updated here on these homes. They do have to keep the facades. They have to keep the facade. It's pretty hard to tear down load-bearing walls. But the owners can do work on the interior. Some of them completely gutted some of them. Worked on the interiors, rebuilding kitchens, putting additions onto the back. All of that is completely allowed. I'm not sure what the market rates are for these compared to other neighborhoods in the city, if tourism detracts or not. But apparently a couple of days out of the year, every year, the residents open up their doors so folks can see what they've done to the inside of their homes. But if you ever come on down again, please respect the privacy of the folks that live here. But this is pretty neat. A home, a street of homes since King George. Well, in America's oldest continuously operating and occupied residential street, there is always trash collection and recycle collection. Today happens to be trash day. Have a great day, guys.
From a street still bustling with everyday life, we move just around the corner to the ghost outline of Franklin's home, where the founding father lived, wrote, and experimented, and so much more, in the heart of Philadelphia.
Through this original passage, Ben Franklin would go to and from his house. This has now kind of turned into a Benjamin Franklin Museum, not to be confused with the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, but the Benjamin Franklin Museum and Courtyard. Information about his neighborhood here in the city of Philadelphia. Franklin Court. This ghost structure is the frame of Benjamin Franklin's house. It was demolished in 1812. Benjamin Franklin himself had died in 1790. But excavations have been done and artifacts had been found underneath. No images can provide details to reconstruct the house. This is where a lot of history happened in Philadelphia, a lot of science happened, a lot of innovation in printing press, communication, statesmanship, science, philosophy. Only post office in the country that does not fly an American flag, is that correct?
That is correct.
Wait, what? At Franklin Court, we find the Be Free Franklin Post Office, an active postal station that honors Franklin's role as the first Postmaster General of the colonies. And because it existed before the United States, it doesn't fly the American flag. What's more, it's the only post office in the country that still operates without a zip code, hand-canceling every letter simply under the name of the founder of the American postal system.
We have his printing office right around the corner.
But remember, guys, you need this many for one page of a newspaper of these little. So here's the thing, guys. There's always going to be a trick. Like I said, my trick of not having to spell backwards is I go from right to left. So what do you think my trick for really small letters is going to be? No. Guys, I don't look at the letters. I don't look at the letters. Do you guys have to look at your fingers when you type?
Oh, yeah.
Are you getting better at it? Don't when you do it?
I don't.
Yeah. You guys have to look at the game controller when you play a game? No. Because your hands get used to it, don't they? So you think about your keyboard. Your letters are always in the same order on your keyboard, aren't they? Somebody rearranges those letters, you're going to be in trouble because your fingers are starting to know where they go. Same thing over there. My letters are sorted exactly in the same way, every size. Big ones that I showed you, little ones that I showed you. So I don't look. I grab and I know what I'm grabbing, and I can feel the letter across top. Kind of looks like a drumstick in a way. And I just dipped a little bit of ink on there. You can see it's this sort of blob. It is not liquid. It's not running. One of the ingredients they used to make ink out of was tree sap. Anybody ever get tree sap on your hands or syrup? Yeah, it gets all over, it's real sticky. That's the idea with ink. They wanted to stick to those letters. But I don't want a big blob on the letters if they're not going to print right. Because they got a very different thing on it. All right, now this machine is called a printing press. What am I doing when I press something? What is that action? I push on it, I put pressure on it. So I'm going to take the paper, lay it down. I got paper, ink, and letters together. Now I want to press them, and that's my machine. So I'm going to go underneath a block of wood. I'm going to pull this handle. If you watch the block of wood, it's going to move. It's not going to move much. I don't even have to pull that hard. I just printed half a sheet of paper just like that. Now I will have to do a second. But again, it doesn't take me very long. I just printed that whole thing. Two guys working together, 200 pages every hour. That's a page every 15 seconds. That's what they can do all day on a press like this. So this is exactly how they would have done it. Like I said, they could get 200 of these every hour on one printing press. You might just hold that up a little bit. There you go, guys. We'll let that dry in a few hours, and then it'll be ready to go. Any questions?
When? He was like 15 or so, 12?
And that's a little old. Because he'd been, usually around 10 is when most kids would start their career.
Franklin's printing press gave him a voice, but his postal network gave him the power to amplify it. Together, they laid the foundation for a free press in a young democracy. And inside the Benjamin Franklin Museum, we see how his ideas, inventions, and contradictions shaped the world that he left behind. The Benjamin Franklin Museum explores the many faces of the man behind the myth: inventor, printer, diplomat, philosopher. From his bifocals to his family Bible, from his pen names to his many artifacts. Each one here reveals another layer of a life driven by curiosity and full of contradiction, a man who preached frugality yet lived in diplomatic splendor, a scientist who sought truth, but a statesman who mastered persuasion.
Only 2 years of formal schooling, Benjamin Franklin, but he valued self-improvement, and he constantly sought ways to improve himself. He was a voracious reader. Benjamin Franklin had a local glassworks make him an apparatus to generate electricity. So turning this wheel produced static electricity, which was drawn off the glass sphere by metallic points. Just ingenious to be able to take the knowledge of science and try to engineer it into new technologies. Franklin also proposed a society to be called the American Philosophical Society, which today remains a world-renowned institution discussing all sorts of philosophical conundrums and issues and debates as well. Back in the days of the Enlightenment, that also involved the work of science as part of philosophy, which philosophy was the love of learning and of knowledge, not solely just physical knowledge. Science was part of that at that time as well, and rightfully so. But Franklin had a love of learning, and he continued to try to understand the best that the world had to offer. We have a 1700 Sudoku. Benjamin Franklin failed mathematics twice in school, apparently, but he enjoyed magic squares. Brain teasers here, and he would use these to pass the time while listening to debates in the Pennsylvania Assembly. Huh. At the time of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, Benjamin Franklin was the oldest member of the convention. He was sick, he was often in a lot of pain, so this was actually a sedan chair that was used by prisoners at a local nearby jail. And they were popular in Europe in the 18th century, and so Benjamin Franklin was often transported around in one of these. The Benjamin Franklin exam features many, many interactive exhibits to help visitors of all ages get to appreciate the extraordinary nature of Ben Franklin. His inventiveness, his passions, his travels, his social life. He was a very social man as well. His scientific inventions and experiments. His typesetting work as a printer. Definitely a man of many, many talents. And this museum really does encapsulate so much of Benjamin Franklin.
The museum offers a glimpse into Franklin's mind, but to see his heart, you have to walk the streets that he helped protect, because long before fire trucks and hydrants, Benjamin Franklin was organizing bucket brigades. In 1736, Benjamin Franklin helped found the Union Fire Company, one of the first volunteer firefighting organizations in all of the American colonies. He saw it not as a public display, but as a public duty, organizing neighbors to protect one another when disaster struck. Today, his legacy still burns bright in murals, memorials, and in this fire company that traces its roots back nearly 300 years. And for those wanting to dive deeper into the city's firefighting history, including Franklin's original fire buckets, the Philadelphia Firemen's Hall Museum isn't very far from here at all. Franklin's sense of service shaped the streets of Philadelphia, but his spiritual life found a home just a few blocks away. At Christ Church, he worshiped, debated, and shared a pew with some of the most influential minds of the American Revolution.
This is the Franklin Pew. The pew rented, purchased by Benjamin Franklin and his family in Christ Church. Here inside Christ Church with the absolutely beautiful organ. As we walk on through, grave markers here in the middle of the church. Pew number 70 is the Franklin pew. And as we continue up forward, pew number 56, which is right here. This larger one is the Washington pew. Worship George Washington. Upon Washington's return to Mount Vernon and John Adams becoming the second president of the United States. This pew was voted to the use of John Adams and was also occupied by the Marquis de Lafayette in 1824 in his grand journey of America. No, this is the Christ Church bell in Philadelphia here. This was actually cast by the same foundry that cast the Liberty Bell. But this was cast in 1702 at Whitechapel Foundry in London, believed to be the earliest commissioned bell in America. Only recently returned to its original home. Some may call it America's first bell.
That bell once rang out from this steeple, the tallest structure in all of the colonies when it was completed in 1754. Benjamin Franklin himself was pivotal in raising funds to build it, knowing that its sound would carry across the growing city a voice of unity and civic pride. Unlike the modest Swedish church of Gloria Dei, Christ Church was built in grandeur, its brick and brass reflecting the rising power of Philadelphia and the prominent minds and elites who gathered here. The Christ Church burial ground, established in 1719, is the final resting place of Benjamin Franklin. Passed away in 1790. So he was able to see the fruits of independence. He was able to see the fruits of the Constitution. Benjamin Franklin. Such an extraordinary individual. A wide variety of interests, projects, responsibilities. Statesman, politician, postmaster, inventor, scientist.
No, I'm saying something.
The grave sites of many prominent individuals often feature tokens of respect or honor provided by guests passing by. Here, a quiet tribute to the man who once said, "A penny saved is a penny earned," is demonstrated as visitors toss pennies on Franklin's grave. Now, just across the street, those very coins are born at the United States Mint. Franklin never lived to see the U.S. Mint, but his fingerprints were all over early American money, from designing colonial currency to shaping how we thought about value, debt, and financial independence. So here at the Mint, they have self-guided tours. However, no photography allowed, so I'll see you on the outside. Here we are at the site of the 4th United States Mint. Inside the Mint here, you have a free self-guided tour. No photos allowed inside. But we spent about 45 minutes. We spent about 45 minutes inside exploring the gift shop, of course. But there's a video inside, displays regarding all sorts of things about the establishment of a mint, for part of the financial independence of the new United States of America, as well as how the process is made. And you could actually look out over the circulation floor to see the process of coins being made, along with several displays demonstrating the process and videos as well. Really, really helpful to help you understand what's going on. And inside, there's also Peter the Eagle, an actual taxidermied eagle that used to fly around the very first mint in Philadelphia. And he is studied by artists today when looking for eagle features for coins. Really neat. If you're into coinage, if you're into financial things, collectibles, I'd highly recommend a visit with the free tour, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia. From the coins minted in his honor to the institutions he helped shape, Franklin's influence permeates Philadelphia, and nowhere is this more evident than at the Franklin Institute, where the Benjamin Franklin National Memorial stands as a testament to his multifaceted legacy.
The National Benjamin Franklin Memorial. Quite a large structure. Inside the Franklin Institute, dedicated to science in honor and remembrance in the spirit of Benjamin Franklin and scientific innovation. Although the memorial to Benjamin Franklin is inside the Franklin Institute, which charges admission, you do not require admission to see the memorial. You can go right up to it. The other areas of the museum of the Franklin Institute are blocked off. So straight from the entrance, you can have Benjamin Franklin looking down on you. First known as a scientist before becoming a statesman, a politician. It was his role as an inventor and a scientist, becoming what's known as an enlightenment scientist that drew the other founders to seek his wisdom.
The Benjamin Franklin National Memorial is a monument to a man whose presence still looms large over Philadelphia and the American identity itself. But as we've seen today, Franklin's legacy isn't just etched in marble and memory. It lives on in the post offices that still deliver, in the streets that still echo his voice, and in the communities and institutions that he helped to create. From runaway apprentice to founding father, Franklin left more than just wisdom behind. He left a city still shaped by his ideals. If you enjoyed this journey through Franklin's Philadelphia, we've got a lot more for you, from the city's storied past to its modern icons. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore the full series here, and we'll see you in the next one.